Hidden away in the vastness of the Pacific, and undiscovered by men until only a few centuries ago, lies a group of strange volcanic islands. Each is a crucible where evolution proceeds at extraordinary speed. Galapagos. Each island contains its own unique community. The discovery of these creatures inspired an idea that changed our understanding of life on Earth: evolution. And today, scientists on Galapagos are continuing to make discoveries that shed light on that crucial process and have revealed that human beings can be just as powerful a driving force for change as any other factor. Something here was the catalyst that produced the most spectacular explosion of biological diversity in the world. It's not just the number of species that appeared, but the rate at which they did so. And the result is so extraordinary, it inspired the most important of all biological theories, Charles Darwin's evolution by natural selection. And now, 200 years later, we are beginning to understand the deep-lying forces that produced this biological wonderland. One of those factors is isolation. A part of Isabella Island, the largest of the 16 in the archipelago, is so difficult to get to, it's hard to... Its giant crater lies exactly on the equator and is encircled internally by steep cliffs. And on its flanks, evidence was discovered of a catastrophe that might, paradoxically, eventually lead to the creation of a new species. This flow of recently solidified lava has created an impassable barrier 100 meters wide right through the vegetation. The fresh lava is razor-sharp and almost impossible to cross. On it lie bones. Bleached white by the baking sun, they're those of giant tortoises. Some animals that got stuck here are still clinging to life. Tortoises are tough. They can survive for months without any food or water. And that worsened their fate. It will take them months to die. Why so many tortoises tried to cross the lava barrier, nobody knows. What drove them to keep attempting this impossible journey? Perhaps they were desperately trying to rejoin other members of their group. Their deaths, however, are significant. They illustrate a principle that applies to the whole of nature. It's not unique to the Galapagos, but it's because of the Galapagos that we first came to understand it. This tragic scene filmed for the first time may provide a clue as to how a new species may start to evolve. The lava flow created an impassable physical barrier across the tortoise's territory, dividing it into two. So, two tortoise populations that were once one must now live apart. If there is any significant difference now or in the future between their two territories, the tortoises may eventually become two different species. Animals and plants are evolving throughout the natural world. But it was the strange creatures of Galapagos that first revealed how that happens. Nearly 200 years ago, the islands were visited by a young naturalist. Today, there are 13 of them distributed throughout the archipelago. Each has its own special talents. The woodpecker finch has discovered how to use a tool to winkle grubs out of their burrows in the branches of trees. The vampire finch has learned how to extract blood from sitting birds. Eventually, there were 15 different species in the islands, all descended from a single founder. But why should the environments of the islands be so different? Well, a hint of that reason may come from looking at film that I shot right here back in 1978.
In these programmes, we're going to survey the unmeasurable variety of animals that have been produced by natural selection and look at them not as isolated oddities.
That image of me shot 30 years ago indicates something extraordinary. In that time, the rock on which I was sitting has moved its position by about a metre from where I was then to where I am now. In fact, the whole of this island is drifting across the surface of the globe at a rate of about 3 centimetres a year, roughly the rate at which my fingernails grow. That may not sound much, but in the 3 million odd years since this island emerged above the surface of the ocean, it has drifted in a southeasterly direction by about 60 miles. Movements in the Earth's crust are the key to understanding the archipelago's extraordinary evolutionary history. A giant hotspot rising from the Earth's molten core began to build the Galapagos 4 million years ago. But as the island drifted away from it, other volcanoes replaced it, one after the other. Each was built from an accumulation of ash and lava. But then, as each moved away, eruptions ceased. So a group of islands appeared, one after the other. The islands are separated from one another by water, so their populations can't, for the most part, mix. But they're just close enough for an occasional animal to float across and so seed a newly emerging island. Because the islands are of different ages, they contain between them a great variety of environments. And each has molded its inhabitants in its own way. That is why their animals are so diverse. Each is a separate evolutionary community. Darwin had noticed some of the clearest differences. But there are many others that are less obvious. An isolated population of animals can change not only in their anatomy, but in their behavior. Galapagos, for its size, has more unique species than anywhere else on Earth. And all have appeared in the island's comparatively short history. A clue as to why that may be is suggested by the numbers of a particular kind of animal on the islands. Predators. Of the few predators that do exist in Galapagos, one of the greatest concentrations can be found on the rocky island of Fernandina. And here they all have a common characteristic. They're all small. The Galapagos racer. They search for prey in the colonies of marine iguanas. But all they can manage to do is to pick off the young, the weak and the dying. And even that they find quite difficult. They hunt in the rocks around the fringes of the colony. They have to use a combination of both venom and constriction to make a kill. And even then, because they are small snakes, it may take more than one to overcome a victim. And then there's a tug of war between the winners to settle who has the prize. There are other predators that prey on the iguanas from the air. The Galapagos hawk. But even this hunter is seldom powerful enough to subdue a big male. It usually waits until it finds one that is weak or encumbered. A pregnant female trying to find a place to lay her eggs. And there are not many hawks here. Only 150 mated pairs, because there's only a limited number of nesting sites. There are so few birds that they make very little impact on the iguana population. So why are there no larger predators on Galapagos? Most of the Galapagos animals came from the rainforests of South America, 600 miles away. There are plenty of big predators in these forests. Reptiles got to Galapagos by floating across the ocean on rafts of vegetation. Only hardy animals like the iguanas and tortoises could make that 600-mile voyage. The great predators of the jungles, however, are mammals. Big, fast and warm-blooded, like jaguars. If any of them had ever been carried away on a raft of vegetation, they would have perished out on the open ocean within a few days. So now, while there are many kinds of herbivorous reptiles in the Galapagos, there are no large predatory mammals of any kind. And this has had a profound effect on the animals that did get here. It's something noticed by every visitor who comes to the islands. All the animals here are amazingly tame. Even the little finches are happy to bathe within inches of a stranger. The lack of predators may have a surprisingly widespread effect. It's not just that animals are not frightened of strangers, the so-called island tameness, but that time that would be spent hiding from attackers can now be used to find food, find mates, and raise young, and so produce more young, which hastens the progress of evolution. There is no more impressive example of that than Fernandina's iguana colony. With no significant predators around, these herbivores produce lots of young. So many that their problem is not how to defend themselves, but how to find enough food to support their great numbers. So they ventured into the sea itself to graze seaweed on the sea floor. And although swimming in the cold sea cools them uncomfortably, with no predators around, they can soon put that right by stretching out in the sun. The lack of big predators has had an effect on all the animals of the Galapagos. They reproduce freely, so populations increase rapidly. And so, consequently, does evolutionary change. But island tameness has dangers. If a major predator does appear, then wildlife will be ill-equipped to defend itself. And one did. In the year 1535, the most successful predatory animal of all arrived. Man. By the beginning of the 17th century, the islands had become a haven for pirates. By the 19th century, whalers and merchantmen were calling here regularly, and all these ships had a disastrous effect. There is little or no fresh water on these islands, but they have a much rarer resource. Giant tortoises can survive without food or water for very long periods. So ships could come here, collect the tortoises, stow them in the hold, and then after weeks at sea, bring one out, butcher it, and have a meal of fresh meat. Slow, lumbering, and with no way of defending themselves, the tortoises were easy victims. The population was decimated. Between the 16th and 20th centuries, more than 100,000 were taken away and slaughtered. Pinta, located on the shipping route around the northern fringe of the archipelago, was a favorite stopover for ships and their hungry crews. And the unique Pinta tortoise was presumed extinct by the early 20th century. But in 1972, an amazing discovery was made and filmed. a living male pinta tortoise was discovered in the undergrowth. He was taken off to a protected enclosure on the main island to live out his days in comfort and safety. Here, but he's a very important animal. Probably more than any other single creature, he's focused the attention of the world on the fragility of our environment. And he's stimulated science to look into whole new areas of research here in the Galapagos. Just 14 days after we filmed Lonesome, he died in his sleep. But he's not forgotten. Lonesome George's story, like Darwin's fleeting but famous visit 200 years ago, has attracted many visitors to the islands. Today, the archipelago is the basis of a multi-million-dollar tourist industry. 30,000 people live here in 3 small towns. And fleets of small boats take visitors on carefully planned trips to see the island's main sights. This human influence has had a great effect on the island's wildlife. But among the immigrants are scientists. Scientists are now trying to analyze the impact of human beings on the course of evolution in the islands. And surprisingly, perhaps, the finches that Darwin made famous are still providing new insights. Biologist Andrew Hendry is looking at how the finch's evolution may have been affected by human settlements.
When humans come into a new location, essentially what they do is they change the environment, and that's changing selection that's acting on the populations.
Hendry is studying one particular species, the medium ground finch.
12.0. Okay, yeah.
Remarkably, he's found that this finch, in its natural setting, is on the verge of dividing into 2 separate species. The 2 are defined by the size of their beaks. One is small, the other large. The difference between them has been caused by the types of food they eat.
So if you feed on some small seed, then you tend to have a small beak. And if you feed on a large seed, then you tend to have a really big beak and you tend to have a hard bite.
Remarkably, Hendry has found that among medium ground finches that live near human beings, the distinct big and small beak forms are getting fewer. It's as if the 2 variants are here merging back into one. The presence of human beings has stopped this finch from evolving.
We found that they feed a lot on human foods, ranging from rice to fruit to grains to potato chips. And feeding on those types of different foods doesn't really seem to matter what your beak size is anymore. So it seems like humans have caused a speciation reversal. They're fusing back together.
As the forces that first shaped these islands and the organisms that live on them. But human beings can not only destroy, they can conserve. In the 1970s, the tortoise population reached an all-time low. Now, there's a major breeding program for them. The tortoise population today is increasing. Once threatened species have been brought back from the brink. And scientists are discovering just how important and influential this reintroduction program might be. On Alcedo volcano, home for the largest population of free-roaming giant tortoises, a study has shown that they're crucial to the health of all the surrounding wildlife. Biologist Steve Blake uses satellite tags to track their movements. They reveal, to most people's great surprise, that the tortoises migrate over huge distances, from the depths of the crater right up to the rim.
It's just phenomenal. Why would a 600-pound reptile migrate from sea level to up to 1,000 meters on some islands?
From the air, the routes the tortoises take are clearly visible. And they use the same highways year after year.
One of the fundamental drivers of the migration seems to be food. Tortoises tend to come to the highlands at the coolest time of year. Up in the highlands, they can feed on a year-round, low-quality food source. But then when the rains kick in, the lowlands tend to green up, and the tortoises go down there, probably to fatten up.
But Blake's studies reveal much more about the tortoises than just where they go. They demonstrate the extraordinary effect that tortoises have on their surrounding environment. They create special conditions that suit all. Be delighted. In just a few million years, this empty expanse of ocean was transformed. A series of volcanoes broke the surface and built the islands. Against heavy odds, a few species managed to reach them. They adapted to what they found. And so evolved into a multitude of new species. Each new discovery we make gives Darwin's theory a greater relevance. But beyond the strange plants and bizarre animals, there is a greater significance. What we've learned here has given us a greater understanding of our planet. This small group of islands has revealed in microcosm the processes that have shaped all life on Earth.
Well, if like me you simply can't get enough of the poetic wisdom of David Attenborough, then put next Saturday at 8 in your planners, because we revisit his Kingdom of Plants series on Sky One HD. I wonder what Mr. Attenborough would say about the mating rituals of Stella. She's got some fessing up to do next.